When I look back at my younger years, I remember a man who was carrying far more than he understood. Responsibilities, uncertainty, emotional strain, financial pressure, relational tension. All of it moving through a nervous system that rarely felt settled. I didn't have the language then for regulation or coherence or embodied awareness. I only knew the feeling of inner agitation, the constant hum of something isn't right. And so, like many sincere seekers, I turned toward books and teachings and workshops and lectures and philosophies. Zen, A Course in Miracles, Buddhism, Ram Dass, mystical writings, Gnosticism, Taoism, spiritual psychology, mystical Christianity, believing that somewhere inside those pages was a doorway out of the discomfort I felt living inside myself. And I read constantly. I listened intently. I reflected deeply. I did all the practices. I meditated. I chanted. And beneath all of it was a quiet prayer that if I could just understand enough, if I could just reach enlightenment, the suffering would dissolve. Enlightenment to that younger version of me meant relief from the torment of self, relief from anxiety, relief from confusion, relief from relational pain, relief from the sense of being overwhelmed by life's demands and unfairness and injustice. Yet what unfolded across the decades was not a sudden arrival into freedom, but a gradual reorientation, almost invisible while it was happening, where I began to notice that accumulating knowledge did not necessarily soften my body, that insight did not automatically quiet reactivity, that understanding life conceptually did not regulate the experience of living it. Instead, life itself became the teacher. Lawsuits, loss, misunderstandings, transitions, heartbreak, rebuilding, solitude, and unexpected grace. Each season revealing something that no book could fully transmit. And that peace was less about discovering the right idea and more about discovering what disturbed my nervous system and gently releasing my participation in those disturbances. This was not dramatic renunciation, but subtle editing, stepping away from environments that heightened anxiety, loosening attachments to narratives that fueled regret, and softening relationships with urgency, learning to pause rather than push, to observe rather than defend, to breathe rather than resolve. Over time, what I once pursued as enlightenment began to feel more like coherence, a simple but profound capacity to remain present without being pulled into every hook the world offered. And it's what we now speak of through non-reactive intelligence. It is spacious awareness, observation as the gateway, stillness as knowing, acceptance unlocking inner alignment. And slowly, almost tenderly, desperation began to erode. It didn't disappear in a single revelation, but it wore down through repetition of ordinary moments where I did not escalate, I did not grasp, I did not demand that life be different before I could rest inside it. The erosion of desperation is what happens when you stop negotiating with the present. It's when you no longer believe peace lives somewhere else. And when you recognize that nervous system coherence is not a reward granted after life improves, but it is a practice that is available while life still remains imperfect. Today, when I wake up in the quiet cottage, sunlight entering softly, responsibilities are simpler, relationships slower, rhythms gentler. I do not interpret this as having achieved enlightenment. I interpret it as having worn out desperation. The young man who once pleaded for peace now understands that peace was never withheld. It was only obscured by urgency and efforting, and the belief that something more was required of me. And what remains now is mostly gratitude. Gratitude for ordinary regulation, for warmth, and safety, and nourishment, and rest, and a sense of daily rhythm. Companions I once overlooked while chasing transcendence. So, when I speak of the erosion of desperation, I'm not describing a philosophy, but a lived arc. It's the long movement from striving to softening, from accumulation to reduction, from seeking escape to inhabiting presence. And if there is an offering here for you, it is simply this. Perhaps what you are longing for is not waiting at the end of more understanding, but quietly emerging each time you release what overwhelms you. Whenever you pause instead of push, whenever you allow your nervous system to remember that it is already safe enough to breathe where you are. And as this reflection closes, you may find that the quiet shift from urgency toward steadiness is not something that must be figured out alone, but gently cultivated through understanding and practice. And this is the heart of my work. It is the reason I have written Non-Reactive Intelligence, the Art of Invincible Presence. It serves as a practical companion to the very arc described here through the 10 principles and the accompanying videos and the contemplative practices The book offers a clear path for studying how observation softens reaction, how boundaries restore freedom, and how presence becomes a skill rather than an abstraction. So if something within this message resonates, if you sense the possibility that peace is less an achievement than a remembering, you are warmly invited to explore the material, engage the teachings, and allow the steady study of non-reactive intelligence to support your own gradual erosion of desperation into grounded, livable presence. Peace be with you.